I read chapter 13, Motivational Interviewing for Intimate Partner Violence, which I thought was pretty interesting. I haven't worked a lot in that area. When I worked with individuals that were dealing with HIV or hepatitis C, and just working in sexual health, I did do intimate partner violence screenings. So sometimes I did run into clients that were dealing with IPV, but I personally did not do that work with them as far as like motivational interviewing. From there, I would like refer them on to other resources and other services. So it was pretty cool to like read this chapter and learn more about IPV. What I kind of gathered from this chapter, some like points I took away. Of course, like the definition of IPV, which can take many forms. Can be in physical aggression, verbal or psychological abusive behaviors perpetrated against an intimate partner. I thought the prevalence rates were pretty interesting. I assume they are pretty current since this edition of the book is 2023. That physical aggression was like 22% for men, 28% for women. Non-physical forms were more common in women, which are 40%, and 32% for men. And coercive control, which I feel like we don't really talk about in abuse situations or in IPV situations. But coercion is also like a really big thing as well. And that was 41% for women and 43% for men. Also found it interesting that treatment for IPV is often only compelled by court order, which makes sense, or other external forces, but that it's usually a court-mandated group treatment. I'm not sure why. I was just surprised that it wasn't more individual treatment or couple treatment, because that's where you see it more often. And also that earliest group treatments drew from the feminist perspective that IPV is a reflection of larger patriarchal systems that supports male domination of women. So I guess it makes sense as far as like women wanting to be in more group settings or in more community settings and talking about these situations, since it does come from a feminist perspective. Also read that motivation is an important consideration in IPV, which I could see when dealing with victims and also dealing with the perpetrators of violence. Motivation is probably a hard, something hard to, implement in counseling and in doing that work. Also read that the individuals that have lower readiness to change may underreport, which makes sense. Obviously, victims not wanting to report or being scared to report, which also leads to less engagement. The key issues with motivational interviewing in IPV was mostly resistance or hesitation, which makes sense. Like I said, with victims or perpetrators, and comorbid conditions that can make behavior change more difficult, so such as like substance abuse or mental health issues. So I found that pretty interesting, just reading this chapter and learning about how MI can be implemented with intimate partner violence.